What's up, Roach class? We're going to go over the interface, studio monitors, and how we hook them up to the computer. So first, I'm going to start with actual interface. The one I'm using is the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. And then how I have it hooked up is there's a USB that comes inside the box that you would hook into your computer. And it should give you like a web address to go to the Focusrite website to download the drivers. I've got the JBL studio monitors that I got for Guitar Center. Got hooked up. They were $99 for the pair. Argued with the manager because their flyer was wrong. They do show online for $299 for the pair. Finally, to get them hooked in to the back of the Focusrite, we have these patch cables. They're called balance cables. They actually look like guitar cables, but the ends look a little different. There's one for left and one for right. And what this does is, rather than like a traditional interface, you actually get a signal without static noise. This is the Focusrite Scarlett Solo. This is the actual first interface I was using before I got the Scarlett 2i2. Get it out of the box here. Oh yeah, dang. I think look here in the front. It still has two inputs, but one of them's a guitar input, and then the other one's like a microphone input. And here on the back, you can see that the outputs here just has a line output. These you could hook up to different speakers, but you're going to get a real staticky signal. So I usually use the headphone jack, and I would plug into a clean on the amp or like a powered speaker. Once you got everything plugged in, hooked up, and the drivers downloaded, it should automatically bring you to the ASO control panel. But if not, you can navigate it to it by this folder. Always have the driver set for ASIO. My sample rate's 44.1 kilohertz with 256 buffer size. You just go ahead and close that. And then when you open Reaper for the first time, it should pop this up. You want to make sure that your audio system's set for ASIO and that your sample rate matches with the block size for the Focusrite. After this, we're going to need to download a few things. Something that's pretty cool is if at stlotones.com, they have this Emissary amp. It's free. It also comes with an impulse response loader. We're going to need that a little bit later. And if you look down here, free. A couple other things I would suggest is Waves 11. It gives you a lot of stuff you can do for your recording, for mastering. It does cost money, but you're going to end up needing it at some point. And then either Easy Drummer 2 or I have Superior Drummer 3. That's something that you do have to buy, but that's what you're going to need to do your drums. Or you could get good drums or some kind of drum program, but this is the one that I'm familiar with. Once you got your desired plugins downloaded and installed, we're going to be almost ready to load up the programs, but first we're going to need to set the clip. And if you can see here, it's glowing red when I'm hitting the strings. Usually I do like a palm mute, or I'll hit the strings a little harder that's open. You want to turn it up to it's red, and then just slowly turn it down a little bit till it hits green. You just want to just barely get it into the green. So I'm just hitting palm mutes until I get it to where it goes green. And you can see that the gain goes pretty far down. And once you got it set to green, we're good to go ahead and open up Reaper. Just as an example, I'm just going to use my last track that I did for the Sunday with Ola, which was the same thing that I used for my crowbar tone. So you can see here that I got some of my tracks. I got the Ola drums, and then I have my left and right channel with the guitar. And you can see here's my Superior Drummer, as that's what I use to have my drums for the crowbar. When you go to insert a track, you just go up here to the top, hit Insert, click on Track. It'll pop up your new track. You want to make sure that the recording monitoring is on, and then you're going to need to activate or arm the track before it actually records or you hear anything. And something else to check is the input. The Focusrite has an input 1 and 2. For the ones that I did for the Sunday with Ola, I was plugged into input 2. So you can see I picked input 2. So we'll go under Mono, pick input 1 or 2, whichever one your guitar is plugged into. And then you would hit the FX button here to bring up your plugins. If it's fresh and brand new, you're probably just going to have the couple plugins that you had. Just for this here, I'll just go ahead and pick the Archetype Gorgira. So we'll just double click it. it'll bring in your plugin. I know for this particular plugin, for the Gojira plugin, it's kind of loud, so I would adjust the output right here, or you can adjust them down here on whatever track that it is. I usually set this one down to like -3. The amplitude plugin and most of the archetype other plugins, I don't really have to adjust that. You'll just notice it'll be real loud through your monitors. Once I have all that set up, I'll go ahead and test the guitar, make sure that it's making a noise. And then I'll probably just jam out a little bit with it before I get ready to record. Once you do get ready to record, you would go ahead and hit the record button here, and it'll just start recording what you're playing. When I did the tracks here, you can see that I've recorded a track where I panned all the way to the right, and then I played along with it, and then I panned the other track to the left. So what this does, when I have these two tracks, it gives me a more fuller sound. Some people do quad tracking, which is exactly what it says. It's 4 tracks. You would have 2 tracks recorded, panned to the left, and 2 tracks recorded to the right. The whole thing with doing these dual tracks or quad tracks is that you're actually going to have to play that 2 times or 4 times, depending on the layers. When you go to add Superior Drummer, you would go to Insert and go to Insert Virtual Instrument on New Track. So to make a whole separate track for it, you would click Superior Drummer. It's going to pop up with this build routing confirmation. I've not messed with it having all these tracks, but it would add all these tracks if you want to do each individual little drum. To simplify it, I just hit no. I don't need all that. And then you can pick your drum kit. I like to pick a different drum kit, so I usually go to the Metal Foundry, which is a download, like an extra pack that I've downloaded. And I will go over here to the side. This is where you pick your drums. I like the Tune Track one called Defeat. Just has a more natural sound to me. And then when you're wanting to actually play tracks, you can click on Grooves, and you can jam along with all these different tracks. And if you find one that you like, you can hold the left on the mouse, the little left button, and drag it down. And then you can start filling this in and adding tracks. And then if you wanted to kind of split it or cut it, you can go to these little scissors, and you can split it, and you can spread it out. Once you have this filled up here and you're jamming out with it, you notice here it has this button that says Follow Host. This is automatically going to sync it up with the tempo of what you're playing. If you unfollow it, it's not going to pick up the drums when you go to record. You would have to manually download and make a MIDI file, which is just too complicated. So what I do is follow host. And if you look right here, if I can get to it, you can see here BPM. So if I change this BPM, if I just change it to, we'll just say 122. When I go back to the Easy Drummer, it automatically changes the tempo. I'm going to put it back on 120. Oh, definitely not 0. So when you go to record, whatever you've got lined up here that you've been jamming with, it'll start. So you can see I normally start between like 2 or 2.5. It gives me just a few seconds before the drums kick in. So when you go to hit record, it automatically pick up the drums, whether this is red or not. This doesn't have to be red. You just got to be able to hear the drums coming through. So once I have a track going and playing, when I hit record, I can start recording with the drums. And then I can start all over and I can record another track, like I said, doing the left pan. And then if you need to mute a track, you would just hit this button here. And this will also mute it for when you're playing, recording, or if you're trying to make, to export that audio. So I'm going to go ahead and mute these drums here so we don't want that playing over my Sunday with Ola stuff. But you can see here. And I was just muting the 2 guitars. Down here towards the end, I did add a 3rd guitar. So some people will do like a track where you have a left, a right, and a middle. And it just, I added a little bit of oomph to it. And if you look on track 4, you can see that I actually turned the volume down. So something with layering tracks, if you're doing a dual track and then you're putting like a lead or a rhythm with it, sometimes that lead will be louder, you'll have to turn the volume up, or if you're doing like a rhythm to mix it together, that rhythm may have to be lower. And then when you're doing solos, it's going to be a single track. I would suggest adding some kind of delay, or we'll go over some effects and waves that you can add to give a fuller sound. Because I don't know too many people that can play a solo exactly the same way every single time. So once you got all that stuff set up so that you've recorded something and you have something saved right here, you can actually go up here to File and you can save the project. Now something cool with inside some of these folders, if I show you how I set up my guitars, when you open these folders and you're adding the guitar tracks, you would just click Add, and you can just keep adding more. And this is kind of like your effects chain. So you can see here that I did the wannabe metal zone, and it would be first in the effects chain. And then I did the amplitude plugin, which would have been next. And then I kind of set this up. Turned all the effects off. I got both Dimebag amps set to his settings. I turned the flanger off. The Marshall cab on here just didn't sound right, so I went with this metal T1, and then of course the orange cab. And then in the rack I turned the parametric EQ off. On here you'll see the C4 stereo. It's something kind of more to do with the waves. What this is here is a parametric EQ where it kind of cuts the lows out. And I actually got this from watching YouTube from Glenn Fricker. He calls it palm mute killer. It's particularly made to go with the guitar plugins. So with having this on, it takes a lot of flub out of it and tightens up the signal. Also, if you were going to add any kind of EQ or anything here, you would add it below that. And this gives me a lot of post EQ before doing any kind of like major mastering. So once I got my track set, got everything set, I've recorded everything. You can see down here, this effect right here, this is where I would add the compressor. And it's been worded like the compressor is like the mix glue. How I run the settings on it, this is also something from Waves, is I have to click the analog. I put the attack at 30, the release at auto, make up at 0, and the threshold will be the one that will be different depending on the tracks. You can see here it says 8.6. Most of my other tracks are at 7. The way to kind of test this is when you're actually setting it up. You'll notice that you'll see when I play the track, you want to try to keep this arrow below 4. So you can have it right on 4, which makes it quieter because it's more compression. I like to do it just below or somewhere in the middle where it's compressing it, but it's still not like super quiet. And then once all that's done and you're wanting to go and export a track, you would go to File and you would go to Render. I guess it doesn't want to let me do it because I'm recording. But once you go to Render, it'll pop up this window here, and you can see down here at the bottom, it shows WAV file. WAV files will be good if you're going to import it to another recording track, like if you were going to use it as like an ending or intro, or if you're going to want to listen to it in your car or on your phone. If you download Lame, which I can get the link for that, put it in the description. You have to have that. So it's like a driver for making MP3s. If you actually click on it to do it, it'll probably tell you to download it anyways. Once you have that set up, when you download the track as MP3, it'll give you a quality MP3 track. And then you can actually go and listen to your tracks. I have some of them saved over here. And then you can see that I'll have the MP3 right here. Now, if there's any questions or something I didn't go over that you have an issue with, you can either try to direct message me or just leave a comment in this video, and I'll try to go over it. Some of the other stuff that I'm probably going to go over in my other videos is how to record real tube amps without microphones, because I've done that with the interface, and a little bit more of not really chasing tones, but if there's individual plugins and stuff that you guys are having problems with, that you're having issues with, maybe I can do an individual video on those. Like the Gojira plugin is so awesome. But that right out of the box, if you just record with it, it's just super loud. But I appreciate it if y'all can give me a like. Just comment if you have any questions.